Well, hello there. It's AFO ASMR here, Matt, and I've got the white noise in the background. My fan, it is rather warm in here as I film, and I thought we could do an impromptu reading this evening. When I say reading, I mean obviously a book. And if you know me as well as you might or might not, I'm a railway enthusiast. I spent the day on the Midhants Railway today. It's Saturday the 25th of July as I film this. And I thought it might be a nice idea to talk about trains, really. Something I'm passionate about. And I have this book. It's the A to Z of famous express trains. Now, these are all British express services, and it covers most of the era of the Big Four, 1924 to 1948. It might cover some of the pre-grouping services. I can't remember, it's been a while since I've read this book. And it also does cover some British Rail services, 1948 into, say, the early 1960s. So I'm going to start with probably one of the most famous British express trains. I will just find the page. It is in alphabetical order. So we turn to page 36. And I am going to start with one that I've gone too far. A lot of you may have heard of across the world. And we are going to start... that's not the page. Never mind. I will try again. Bear with. I see why. I was looking at the wrong page number. These things happen. There we go. So, I'm going to start with probably one of the most famous express trains in Britain. You probably know it because of the Locomotive. It is the Flying Scotsman. And it runs from London King's Cross to Edinburgh. And it says, by 1860, services on the East Coast Main Line between London King's Cross and Edinburgh Waverley were under the control of the Great Northern Railway. Through services between the two capitals were hindered by the lack of standard passenger carriages, and in that year the three companies formed the East Coast Joint Stock to remedy this situation. By 1862, new rolling stock for the first special Scotch Express was ready, and the trains became a regular feature, departing each day at 10 AM from King's Cross and Waverley stations. At that time, the train took a leisurely 10.5 hours to complete the 393 miles, including a stop at York, where the passengers disembarked for lunch. This leisurely pace did not last long, and when Patrick Stirling, the Great Northern Railway's chief mechanical engineer, designed his famous Stirling single locomotives in 1870, the East Coast route saw a rapid acceleration of schedules, with a whole 2 hours soon being lopped off the King's Cross to Edinburgh journey. By 1888, there had also developed a serious rivalry between the operators of the West Coast Main Line, London and North Western Railway and Central Railway, and the East Coast Main Line, Great Northern Railway, North Eastern Railway and North British Railway to achieve the fastest possible time between London and Aberdeen. This resulted in what became known as the Race to the North, and the 20th of August that year, with the sure-footed help from the Stirling Singles as far as York, the East Coast Main Line between King's Cross and Edinburgh was covered in 6 hours and 19 minutes at an average speed of 62.2 miles per hour. The rivalry continued until 1896, when an Anglo-Scottish express operated by the London North Western Railway was derailed at Preston. Safety limits had been flouted and a speed limit was imposed on the two rivals, which stayed in place until 1932. The beginning of the 20th century brought major improvements to the Special Scotch Express, with modern corridor carriages and dining cars. The heavier and longer trains were now headed by IVAT's new Atlantics as far as York, but timings remained the same due to the 1896 speed restriction. The arrival of Nigel Gresley, that should be Sir Nigel Gresley, as locomotive engineer of the Great Northern Railway in 1911, led to the building of a series of groundbreaking Pacific locomotives. Two of his Class A1 462s were built at Doncaster in 1922, and 10 more had been ordered just before the Big Four grouping of 1923. As Chief Mechanical Engineer, As Chief Mechanical Engineer of the newly formed London North Eastern Railway, Gresley went on to develop this design into the A3 and later A4 Streamline Pacifics. That's as in the Mallard, and of course the locomotive named after the service, the Flying Scotsman itself. The Special Scotch Express became officially known as the Flying Scotsman in 1924, and one of Gresley's A1 locomotives, I beg your pardon, it was the other way round. No? Correction. Isn't it fun when you learn little things that are new? Anyway. The Special Scotch Express became officially known as the Flying Scotsman in 1924, and one of Gresley's A1 locomotives, number 4472, was also named in honour of the train. The Flying Scotsman, 60103 in BR numbers. To reduce the journey time between King's Cross and Edinburgh, some of the A1 locomotives were fitted with large tenders containing not only more coal, but also with a corridor linking the engine to the first coach of the train. The latter allowed a crew changeover halfway through the journey, and so the Flying Scotsman became a non-stop service in May 1928. Complete with a host of on-board facilities, the speed limitation agreement was abolished in 1932 and the gloves were off. By 1938, the journey time for the Flying Scotsman had been reduced to 7 hours 20 minutes. The austerity measures of the Second World War soon brought an end to high-speed rail travel, and it took some years before pre-war schedules were being reattained. With the introduction of the record-breaking non-stop the Elizabethan Express in 1954, taking only 6.5 hours to cover the 393 miles, the Flying Scotsman had reverted to an intermediate stop at Newcastle, even though the journey time by 1961 had come down to 7 hours 2 minutes with the introduction of the new Deltic, the Class 55 diesels. The introduction of 100-mile-per-hour running along many stretches of the East Coast Main Line gave the Deltics their racing ground, and timings for the Flying Scotsman continued to tumble. In turn, the Deltics were replaced by the high-speed train sets between 1976 and 1981, and the opening of the Selby diversion improved matters further. Electrification was completed in 1990, and since then Intercity 225 sets with a maximum permissible speed of 125 miles an hour have provided an even faster service. Since privatisation, the train has continued to run with a speeded up service complete with special Flying Scotsman livery being introduced in 2011. The up train now takes only 4 hours between the two capitals. Strangely, the slower 10 AM down working from King's Cross now does not carry the name. I beg your pardon for all those fluffs, but I am keeping them in. They amuse me, and I hope they amuse you. So yeah, that was my chair. I will make that sound a bit quieter. So that was the Flying Scotsman, probably the most famous British train service. We also have Golden Arrow, which ran from London Victoria to Paris, although obviously British trains didn't actually go over to France. What else did we have? Don't know that one. Don't know the Hook Continental. Granite City, which is Glasgow, Buchanan Street to Aberdeen. Heart of Midlothian was another London to Edinburgh King's. London Edinburgh. The Jacobite, that's a well-known one. Here we go. The Jacobite is a steam-hauled tourist train that operates along the scenic 41-mile Mallaig extension, opened in 1901, between Fort William and Mallaig. It was originally introduced as the West Highlander by British Railways in 1984 to increase patronage on this remote route, which last saw regular steam haulage in 1961. Later renamed the Locomotive, the train subsequently passed into the ownership of the West Coast Railway Company, based at Carnforth, in 1995, following privatisation of British Railways. Since then it has been named the Jacobite, with the steam locomotive based for the season at Fort William, and taken from a pool of preserved privately owned locomotives. In recent years it has become so popular with tourists and enthusiasts that a second daily service was added in 2011. The train, known as the Hogwarts Express, and route also featured in the highly successful Harry Potter films. The viaduct in the Harry Potter films is part of that route. So if you find yourself in that part of Scotland and you're a Harry Potter fan, I would recommend you travel along that route, because you will have travelled the same route as Harry Potter himself in the films. So, you know, win-win situation for you, really. I mean, there's a lot of named railways, train services here in this book. It's amazing. A lot of them were sort of LNER. I mean, we had in Britain, we had the big four: Southern Railway, Great Western Railway, London North Eastern Railway, and London Midland Scottish Railway. Before that, we had a lot of small private companies like the South East. Keeping that in. I'm keeping that in. This is just turning into a silly little video, really, isn't it? Anyway, we had small companies like the South Eastern and Chatham, the South Eastern Railway, London Brighton South Coast, London South Western, London North Western, as you heard me mention, the Midland Railway, the Great Central Railway. We had a lot of railways. And some of the more modern ones were like the Midland Pullman, which I'll show you a quick picture. that is a blue Pullman diesel locomotive. It was sort of the predecessor of the high-speed trains, the HSTs, that became famous as running from Paddington down to Bristol. I mean, you know, you had Golden Arrow, Atlantic Coast Express, if you're a railway enthusiast, I really do recommend you get this book. This is a really nice book. It's a beautiful book, in fact. One of my favourites is, of course, the LNER Silver Jubilee service, and their trains were actually painted silver. They ran with an A4 called Silverlink. There's a picture of Silverlink. Beautiful, beautiful engine. Of course, if you go to York, you'll see one of its relatives, the A4 Mallard. Of course, if you live in America, I can't remember exactly where it's based, but you actually have one of those locomotives in America, Dwight D. Eisenhower. In 2013, the 6 surviving LNER A4 locomotives, Dominion of Canada, Mallard, Bittern, Sir Nigel Gresley, Union of South Africa, and Dwight D. Eisenhower all came over here and were on display at the National Railway Museum in York. I was fortunate to go up. I stood 45 minutes until I could get a photo. I actually stood in one spot for 45 minutes in order to get a photo. And if I'm able to find the photo, I will share it with you. If I can't share it with you in the video, I will post it up on my Twitter feed at AFOL1984, and you can see it for yourself. So yeah, there's a lot of marvellous express services listed in this book. A lot of them are very well known, depending on where you are in the country. Yeah, we even had sleeper services down to Penzance. I mean, some of the locomotive classes are mentioned in here are the 33 class, 37, 47, 50, 57, 67, 71, 73, 86, 1366 class, which is a Great Western, 1500 class, which is a Great Western, 4300 class, another Great Western. You'll notice that I'm listing all the Great Western because I am a Great Western Railway enthusiast. I'm particularly partial to the GWR King class and the GWR Hall class locomotives. And the Castle class, the Manor class, the Manor class, Grange class. You know, there were loads of different types of steam locomotive. Yes, the Atlantic Coast Express was pulled by Southern Railway Merchant Navy class locomotives. They were named after shipping lines, so you had lines like Holland America, Pacific. No, I always get that one wrong, so I'm not going to attempt that one. Blue Star. Yeah, I've got it now. Peninsula and Orient, which you would know as P&O. But that's what P&O stands for, Peninsula and Orient. Stena came a lot later, so there wouldn't be a Stena. There was a White Star Line. Canadian Pacific is a Bullet Pacific locomotive. What else? What else have they got in here? The Bournemouth Bell, the Brighton Bell, which is making a comeback. They are actually in the process of reviving this train. They still have all these undergoing overhaul and restoration, so very soon it's going to be really exciting, because this is a 5-bell unit and that's coming back in that livery. Well, it might be in its BR blue, which is a bit of a disappointment, because I would absolutely love to see it in its Pullman livery. So there's that. Let's see, what else have we got in here? The Bristolian. You are the Bristolian. I likes Bristol, I do. I apologise to anyone from Bristol that's watching this video. I know that's a cliche, but I'm sorry. I just one of my favourite people on telly many years ago, and still on telly when they repeat it, was Phil Harding from Time Team. I loved Time Team. I still love Time Team. I think it's one of the best things that has ever been on British television. You know, archaeology. As a kid, I always wanted to be an archaeologist, but I was basically told by my teachers at school I wasn't clever enough to be an archaeologist. So I now work in civil engineering. Put in the comments if you'd like a get to know me or a question and answer video. Put them in the comments and let me know what you'd like, because, you know, I do this for you, and you know, you, me, let's chat, that sort of thing. So, the Broadsmen, Sheringham, Cromer, Norwich, know them very well. I spent many years on holiday in Norfolk around Cromer and Sheringham. If you get up to Sheringham, I do highly recommend the North Norfolk Railway. It's marvellous. It's one of my favourite railways. You know, what else have they got? The Caledonian, Cambrian Coast Express, wonderful service. Great Western Railway. My N-gauge railway is a fictional heritage railway set in Wales as a fictional branch line off the Cambrian coastline. In English, it's called Fiddler's End. Long story short, it was named around the time of the sort of when the government were caught out fiddling their or allegedly fiddling their allowances and things like that. So it was made as a joke and it became Fiddler's End because of that. But I've translated it into Welsh, and the actual name of the layout in Welsh is Crythorian Dyfod. Crythorian Dyfod, which actually translates roughly to Fiddler's Perish. So it's gone from being Fiddler's End in a way to Crythorian Dyfod. I just like saying that, Crythorian Dyfod. It just rolls off the tongue. It's a beautiful. I'd love to learn Welsh. I mean, there are several languages I would love to learn. Welsh, and to take it to the complete other side of the world, Japanese. I would absolutely adore to learn Japanese. I love. This has gone on from railways to cultural, you know, things that I love culturally. I'm a Power Rangers fan, and a few years ago I started learning about Super Sentai, and of course I came into learning about Kamen Rider as well. The only sort of thing I know about them are their theme songs. I can only sing the theme song to Taiyo Sentai Sun Vulcan, or Solar Squadron Sun Vulcan. I am trying to learn the theme song to Seiju Sentai Ginga Man, or Star Beast Squadron Galaxy Man, but that's been taking a bit longer. I'm going to put this book down because this is turning into a bit of a ramble. So that's the railway. Now we have the talking now. So yes, and one of my favourite Kamen Rider theme songs is the theme song to Kamen Rider Ghost, and also Kamen Rider W. So yeah, that's really all I know at the moment. I mean, I also love anime. I mean, you can see, you can't actually see him, but I have got Cell, a figurine of Cell on my shelf behind me from Dragon Ball Z. I love the Cell sagas. That's the imperfect and perfect Cell and Cell game sagas. I've got them as manga as well, English translated, because obviously I don't speak Japanese, but one of my goals in life is to actually go to Tokyo. I'd love to visit Tokyo. I know there's a Super Sentai museum, or a let's save this for another video. I'm gonna call it on this one. It's not exactly gone according to plan, but you know, sometimes the most entertaining videos don't always go according to plan. I'm basically going to leave it as it is, and you know, we're just having a bit of fun. So I will see you next time. I know it's a bit of a rarity that I show my face, but you know, you've earned it. You support me, I support you if you're an ASM artist, and I'll see you next time.